You're listening to Snippets from the Summit with your host, Scott McKay.
How's it going, gentlemen? Welcome to another Snippet from the Summit as part of the Mountaintop Podcast. I am your host, Scott McKay. Today, we're going to talk about the new way guys are getting scammed, especially online. And this can happen, someone drops in your DMs, texts you, or whatever it's going to be that happens, trying to scam you, but particularly in a dating environment like apps or even long-form websites. Now, it used to be the way you detected that there was a fake profile or there wasn't a real live woman behind this interaction was that, first of all, she was extremely attractive, ostensibly very desirable by the alleged picture she was putting up or showing you, or the storyline she was portraying with you, pointed to the simple fact that you probably would be extremely lucky to be able to land a chick like that. Like, for example, let's say you're older, you're out of shape, you don't have a whole lot of skill with women, things that, of course, I believe are obstacles we can overcome and become actually attractive to women. But nevertheless, in a situation where this person who is, say, a 21-year-old supermodel who is just incredibly world-class hot and says and does all the right things and wants to have sex with you even though she's never met you, when such a person love bombs an unlikely candidate out of the blue and without that person having really had any chance to seduce her or show any propensity for being attractive to women at all, you can almost always tell that's a scam. So all of that, of course, is still in full effect, along with the simple concept that if you can't get her on the phone or you can't get her on video or Zoom nowadays, you can pretty much automatically assume that, quote unquote, she is fake because everybody's willing to talk. Most people are willing to get on Zoom and get to know each other over video before they meet each other in real life, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, anytime a woman asks you for money, it's going to be a scam, okay? But there are actually two key ways that dating and relationship scamming has evolved or devolved, if you really want to use the right word to describe what's going on. And both of them, I think, would be extremely surprising to most guys until you dig under the surface and see what's really going on. The first one is it used to be that you could detect a fake profile online or someone who isn't who they say they are by reading into their written communication some evidence that they're not speaking English as a first language. In other words, you could look for the inflection of someone who would write in English as if they're from Eastern Europe or Russia or perhaps from Western Africa. And once you know the patterns of how that written communication flows, you would be able to easily spot a scammer and move on, right? Nowadays, it's a little bit different because you have ChatGPT. In the real world, I don't know if you've noticed this, but there is less focus on, or at least people are less fastidious about being literate. There's a lot of laziness out there. Typos happen. People don't correct them. You can see in your missives back and forth between you and women that you'll perhaps spell the same word two different ways in one message, spaces that shouldn't be there, misusage of punctuation, et cetera, right? In today's postmodern world, as we stand here going into 2025, in our typical written communication to each other, it's less than perfect. And we've come to expect it. And that's probably because dating back to BlackBerries and to moving on into the age of texting and everybody texting each other all the time nowadays, we've normalized typos and, less than perfect literacy, at least in our written communication, right? Well, here's the new and perhaps ironic way you're going to potentially be scammed. And I'm sure you already see this coming. What's written to you is perfect, right? Because they wrote something that they knew was going to come off as perhaps shady or janky because they really are still in Russia or Western Africa or somewhere like that. And they know that, well, at least a large portion of the population is now wise to that. But when they run it by ChatGPT and they perfect it, then all of a sudden you get this squeaky clean written communication sent to you. So Here's the new way to figure out you're being scammed. Yes, you're an unlikely immediate candidate to be love bombed by this person. And yes, perhaps they're asking you for money way too quickly. But in the absence of those two features of typical scamming, anytime you see perfectly written and punctuated English in a message, your antenna should go up, right? It's the exact opposite of the way it used to be. Put that one to the test. The second way we're getting scammed nowadays is just nuts, but I've seen it 3 or 4 times now. I've heard the reports from guys. There are real women, and they're really going out, really having sex with the guy, and then they ask him for money or ask him to fund something or get his personal information through socially engineering him, and the woman disappears. Isn't that nuts? Real woman, real sex, yes, real scam, okay? So obviously, the get off isn't worth the fallout in those situations. You may get laid there, but when your bank account is emptied, was it worth it? Well, of course it wasn't. And, when I say the bank account is emptied, I think that would be a bit of an extreme situation. I think it's more likely that a woman will meet you, have sex with you, and then you pay for something of hers or let her borrow a decent but not surreal amount of money from you, certainly not your entire net worth, right? And then she ghosts you. The reason why I think that situation is more likely than her clearing out your bank account is because you're less likely to even try to figure out who she really was and press charges. You would say, how do you like that? She got what she wanted out of me after I got what I wanted out of her. So she's gone. Well, touche. Whereas if she's systematically cleaning you out, you're going to go try to figure out who that chick was and press charges, and she's less likely to get away with it, right? But here's another layer to that. Given that that's going on where women are really meeting men and having sex with them, just consider how cheap the act of sexual intercourse between two human beings has become. I mean, cynically speaking, is this the end game of hookup culture? Whereas now, hey, we're way beyond simply gratuitous sex. We're way beyond even sugar daddy, sugar baby arrangement sites. And we've gone straight to, I'll screw you and scam you. Isn't that crazy? Well, so now you can see my goal in this particular snippet from the summit is twofold. First of all, I definitely want to make you guys aware of the new ways of being scammed, but I also want you to think about where we are as a culture relative to men and women and sex in general. Want to talk about this or anything else? Scott at mountaintoppodcast.com. Be good out there.
As always, visit mountaintoppodcast.com for more.